One of the best feelings in the world is to know when other people acknowledge and recognize your hard work. Well, in this ranking that was just released by ESPN, the Lions definitely got some recognition, but the recognition might not have been exactly what we were looking for. We're going to talk about it in this episode, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, here's the thing, folks. Again, I know right now the off-season is still ongoing. It's beginning to start to wind down. Obviously, training camp is literally going to start here at the end of the week, and I guarantee you this, I know a lot of Lions fans, I know a lot of football fans are earnestly waiting for when training camp officially opens, so that way we can stop talking about all this other stupid, foolish nonsense. However, though, until that officially happens, we're kind of stuck with this. But in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how yet another ranking has come out where the Lions, or rather I should say, maybe not the Lions, but Lions fans, especially me, kind of got blindsided, if you will, with just how ridiculously unbelievable this ranking is. And here's the reason why I say this. Let's understand something here, folks. In America, perhaps there is no sport that is more hotly contested than probably football. And when you're talking about football, there is probably no position within that sport that is more heavily debated upon than that of the quarterback position. And as we all know, there are 32 teams in the NFL, which means there are 32 starters. It's a very contentious job. There's going to be guys that are constantly competing for a starting role, and there's only one guy that's taking snaps every single week. Now, to have to consider that, you then have to further put it into the context of what it means to have a considered top 10 quarterback, because that's even going to be further highly debated. That's even going to be further highly contested, because depending upon who you're talking to, certain people are going to value other quarterbacks over others based purely upon bias, because they're going to be like, hey, that's my team's quarterback, that means I'm going to root for him, I'm going to value him higher. Or some who might be a little bit more subjective might be able to say, hey, I'm going to have this particular quality or this particular criteria a little bit higher rated versus others, which is going to, again, vary how certain people value what a top quarterback is versus someone else. Now, where this is all coming from is recently Jeremy Fowler, he released through ESPN the 2024 list of the top 10 quarterbacks that are going into this season. And this list was comprised based upon voting, based upon opinions, based upon everything that was comprised of NFL executives, NFL coaches, and also scouts. So it's not Jeremy Fowler that's necessarily putting this list together in his opinions. It's not even ESPN that's putting the list together with their opinions. They're taking all the voting, all the opinions, everything of what NFL executives, NFL coaches, and scouts are saying. And so I was like, okay, I'm kind of curious here to see exactly what the NFL has to say about the top 10 quarterbacks going into 2024. And oh boy, I'm going to say this right now. This list is very interesting. And in my honest opinion, and again, I state this, my opinion, it's extremely sketchy. Here is the list. The list is 1 through 10 as follows. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Joe Burrow. Number 3, Josh Allen. Number 4, Lamar Jackson. Number 5, Matt Stafford. Number 6, Justin Herbert. Number 7, C.J. Stroud. Number 8, Aaron Rodgers. Number 9, Jared Goff. Number 10, Dak Prescott. That right there is the top 10 quarterbacks going into the 2024 season, according to the NFL executives, coaches, scouts, whatever have you, that Jeremy Fowler put together. So, that is a very interesting list. That's a very intriguing list. And I'm trying my best to put this in the best context I can here. Because let's start off with what's good about this list. First and foremost, the one thing I can definitely say as a Lions fan that's good about this list is the fact that Jared Goff actually makes it onto the list. It's a huge win for the Lions. It's also a huge win for Goff. Because we have to think about this, folks. No more than 3 years ago, there were NFL executives, NFL coaches, NFL analysts, and a whole bunch of other people that wanted to say that Jared Goff was washed up, he was a bum, a bridge quarterback, he was considered one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. No more than 3 years ago. Now here we are going into 2024, and according to Jeremy Fowler, after taking all these considerative points of, coaches, scouts, executives, Jared Goff is ranked the 9th best quarterback by everybody else's opinion. That's a huge win for Jared Goff. That's a huge win for the Detroit Lions, because what it shows not only Jared Goff but the Detroit Lions is that the talent that Jared Goff has, the ability that Jared Goff has, it's being recognized, it's being acknowledged, which, if you think about it, that is something that should definitely be considered because of everything that Jared Goff has managed to accomplish while here in Detroit. And just from that perspective alone, the fact that Jared Goff, who when he was written off and pretty much wrote for dead coming here to Detroit, he has come out here and he has had a second reviving of his career, and I would argue a second, a second act that was better than the first act that he had with the Los Angeles Rams. I think his career here in Detroit has been substantially better than the career he had with the Rams. Again, my opinion. However, though, moving past the fact that Goff is on the list, there's not much else I would say that I am absolutely in love with this list. The only other thing I can realistically say I'm okay with the list is that the majority of the names that are on the list I think belong there. Now, what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is that there are a majority of names that are on this list that I think belong to the list. Guys like Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar Jackson, Stafford, Herbert, Prescott, Jared Goff. Obviously, I believe those guys deserve to be on the list. But there are guys that are on the list that I do not think belong on the list. And the two guys that I did not mention, which you guys should be able to have picked up by now that I don't think belong on the list, is CJ Stroud and Aaron Rodgers. Which means, obviously, I have guys that I think that are not on the list that should replace them. And the guys that I think that should be on the list to replace Rodgers and Stroud are Brock Purdy and Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I'm going to explain that here in a moment. But I first have to explain my thought process as to why I'm going to try and set up my perspective here before I actually explain it. The reason why I'm disagreeing with the rankings is because the factors that I base why a quarterback is considered a top quarterback or not is based off of a couple of things. I have like 6 different criteria that I go through in my head. The first thing I think of is, okay, what has this guy accomplished? And it's got to be something, that is pretty substantial in order to be considered an accomplishment, whether it's a record, whether it's something that only that person has done or very few others have done. Obviously, things like MVPs, Super Bowls, things like that, those are definitely factored in. But I'm also going to be factoring in when that was happening. Obviously, accomplishments are a career-wide sort of thing, but it's like, listen, if the guy's been in the league for 20 years and it was something he accomplished 15 years ago, that's going to have substantially less weight. Then I also factor in stats, especially the more recent stats. I also factor in things like playoff record. I factor in what's the future prospect that the guy might have going in with his team. Does he have a very sound future? Does he not have a sound future? What's the talent that the guy actually has? Is the guy a talented quarterback? Does he have, talent that other guys don't have? And what's the situation that that guy may have? Does he have a solid situation with the team? This might also kind of fall into the future prospects, but I'm also basing that off of how the rest of the team is versus what his situation is specifically. So when I'm talking about situation, I'm talking about specifically what the quarterback situation is. And when I'm talking about future prospects, I'm talking about the rest of the team combined with the quarterback. So having explained why I disagree with the rankings, I'm now going to give you guys what I believe is the correct list. What I think, based on, again, my opinion, the correct list is or should be for the ranking of the top 10 quarterbacks in 2024. Here's my top 10 list. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes. No disagreements there. Number 2, Joe Burrow. No disagreements there. Number 3 is Brock Purdy. That is a huge difference because Purdy wasn't even on the list. And then number 4, I have Jared Goff. Jared Goff, I moved up 5 spots, and I'll explain that later. Number 5, I have Lamar Jackson. I moved him down 1 spot. I have Josh Allen at number 6. I moved him down 3 spots. I have Matthew Stafford at number 7. I moved him down 2 spots. I have Justin Herbert at number 8. I think that's about roughly where he was on the previous list or on the other list. I then have Dak Prescott at number 9. I moved him up 1 spot. And then at number 10, I round out with Tua Tagovailoa. That right there was based upon my criteria, I would say is the top 10 quarterbacks going into 2024. Now, I'm going to say this right now. Obviously, there are some that are probably going to ask why I omitted Rodgers and Stroud for Tua and Purdy. Some probably are also wondering why in the hell Purdy didn't get on the list in the first place, but I digress. And then others are certainly going to ask or wonder why I have Goff in the top 5. And no, it's not because of a homerish take. It's not because of the fact that I'm a Goff fan. There is perfectly sound, good, logical reason. But let's first and foremost explain why I took Rodgers and Stroud out and I put in Purdy and I put in Tua. Here's the reason why I took Rodgers out. Rodgers hasn't done a damn thing really since 2021. Yes, he played in 2022. But it was arguably the worst season of his career not only as a Packer, but just by far and in large, ever since he became the starter for the Packers. He finished the year with a 91 passer rating. I understand it. He didn't have the weapons that he's used to having, but it's like, listen, if Rodgers is such a great quarterback, he should have been able to make work and make do with what he had. He clearly could not. So it's like, okay, Rodgers hasn't had a good season since 2021. 2022 was an absolute just pitiful showing on his part. 2023, what happens? He gets traded to the Jets, and literally a couple of plays into the season, he tears his Achilles. So it's like, wait a minute here. This is a guy that really hasn't done anything for the last 2 years. He's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles tear. So he hasn't done anything noteworthy in over 2 years. He's coming off a massive injury, and somehow, just because he's Aaron Rodgers, he gets a spot on the top 10 list. I'm sorry, that does not compute. I don't give a damn if you're Aaron Rodgers. I don't give a damn who you are. If you haven't done anything really in the last 2 years, just because of name recognition, that does not get you on the top 10 list. I'm sorry, that's not how that works. Rodgers has to prove that he can still play with the big boys. And it's like, listen, after not seeing anything out of him for the last 2 years, he's got a lot to prove. He's got a lot to prove not only to the Jets, he's got a lot to prove to everybody. So that's why Rodgers didn't make my list, regardless of anything else. Now, why did C.J. Stroud not make the list? The reason why I'm not putting C.J. Stroud on the list is because he was a rookie last year. I'm sorry. I'm not going to put a guy who was a rookie last year, and albeit he had a really damn good rookie season, absolutely stupendous rookie season. But I'm not going to put a guy that had a rookie year being the only record that he has as far as any statistical production or anything else be put up on a list when there are other guys that have played multiple years in comparison. It's like, listen, you did it one time. Okay, great. Congratulations. I love what I saw. But the one thing about the NFL is it's a prove-it business. Okay, you went out and you proved it your rookie year. Congratulations. Now, after everyone has looked at your film, everybody knows what your tendencies are. Go and do it again. If you can do it again, then we'll revisit this conversation, Stroud. But until that time, you're not top 10 in my book. Not going to happen. And I don't think anybody that realistically should take football seriously should put a guy like Stroud, regardless of how good of a season he had last year, in a top 10 list until he's at least done it twice. So that's why I have Rodgers and Stroud off this list. Now, that explains that. But now I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, why is Goff in the top 5? Is it because I'm a Lions fan? No, I am a Lions fan. I am also a Goff fan. But that's not necessarily why Goff is in the top 5, because I'm going to pretty much ask these questions. Even though they're hypothetical, I'm going to give the question answers anyway. Is Jared Goff the most talented quarterback in the NFL or even on this list? Nope, sure as hell isn't. Is Jared Goff even more talented than the guys that I have behind him? Nope. There are some guys he's not more talented than. There are guys that are behind him, in my opinion, that I consider are more talented than him. So if I'm willing to, acquiesce to that point, why then do I have Jared Goff at number 4? Here's the reason why. I don't base everything just off of talent. Talent will only take you so far, especially when you're having a conversation about who's top 10 or whatever. Let's think about this, folks. Let's take a look at Jared Goff's accomplishments. Just think about this. Jared Goff is the only quarterback in NFL history to snap 10-plus year playoff win droughts for 2 separate franchises. Obviously did it with the Rams, and obviously did it with the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff is also the only quarterback in NFL history to have 30,000-plus passing yards and less than 100 interceptions at the same time. No other quarterback has done that. Jared Goff is only one of 14 quarterbacks in NFL history to win playoff games for 2 separate teams. That's also a very rare accomplishment. Further heightened is this. He's one of only 10 quarterbacks in NFL history to get to the conference championship game for 2 separate teams. Jared Goff also has the 3rd longest throwing streak without an interception in NFL history, with 383 throws. And Jared Goff is tied 3rd fastest in NFL history to get to 25,000 yards. He did it in 97 games. You want to know who he's tied with? He's tied with Peyton Manning and Kurt Warner, both Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That right there, those are huge, huge accomplishments. Does he have an MVP award? No, he doesn't. Has Jared Goff won a Super Bowl? No, he hasn't. He has been to one. But still, the whole point of the matter is, Jared Goff has got some pretty outstanding accomplishments that are tied to his name. We can't overlook those. Then, let's take a look at the statistical production, especially the recent stuff here. Think about this, folks. Since 2021, Jared Goff has the 4th most passing yards. He has the 7th most passing touchdowns. He has the 8th best passer rating. He has the 11th highest passer completion percentage out of all active quarterbacks. Jared Goff, statistically, is a top 10 quarterback. Okay, so there's that. But then you have to think about this as well. This was explained actually in the ESPN Plus article. Jared Goff has in 2023, so let me make sure I clarify that. In 2023, Jared Goff had the best 4th quarter and overtime QBR out of all quarterbacks. He had a 72 QBR in freaking 4th quarter and overtime. Think about that. The QBR ranking that ESPN does is on a scale of 0 to 100. To get over a 65 is very damn hard to do. To get over a 70 is almost impossible. The fact that Jared Goff is that damn good in 2023 when it matters most in crunch time, that speaks high volumes. But that's not where it ends. Jared Goff also was the best quarterback in terms of red zone touchdown to interception ratio. He had 18 touchdowns to 0 interceptions when it came to the red zone. Pretty much it means this. When Jared Goff was in the red zone, nobody was picking him off. He was tearing people apart. So when you talk about the overall stats that Jared Goff has had since 2021, joining the Detroit Lions, you talk about what he did last year in terms of the qualitative stats, plus on top of that, I'm just going to put this up for, kicks and giggles, just what he did as far as overall numbers in 2023, as far as, passing yards, which he was ranked 2nd, as far as passing touchdowns, which I think he was tied 4th, and, the completion percentage and everything else. Jared Goff has the statistical prowess, has the statistical production to back up why I have him in the number 4 spot. But again, my logic, my reasoning doesn't end there. I talked about the quarterback situation. Think about this, folks. Truly try and wrap your brain on this. Jared Goff just got a new 4-year, $212 million extension, so he's now locked up for the next 5 years in Detroit because he still has 1 year left on the LA Rams deal that he's currently playing on. They just also locked up Amon-Ra St. Brown to a 4-year extension. They also locked up his right tackle, Penei Sewell, to a 4-year extension. Pretty much what that tells me is that the biggest playmakers that needed to get contracts are under contract now for the foreseeable future. That is a great situation for a quarterback. Then think about this. Jared Goff has the best offensive coordinator in football, calling plays for him, scheming for him, in Ben Johnson. He has the best offensive line in the NFL. He has the top running back duo in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. He has a top 3 tight end in Sam Laporta. And if you just take a look at the overall situation, Jared Goff has a young, talented team around him. And Jared Goff's only 29. Jared Goff is in the prime of his career. He is in a perfect situation for what he needs right now. And like I just stated, to kind of touch into the future prospects, at 29 and he has all this going for him, he is in not only a perfect situation as a quarterback is concerned, but he has a great future ahead of him for making possible Super Bowl trips and wins. And then, to finally wrap this whole thing up, playoff record. What do you do when it matters the most? I already talked about how Jared Goff was the best quarterback when it came to fourth quarter and overtime in 2023. But think about this. Outside of Patrick Mahomes on that list of the top 10 quarterbacks, not only between my list, but also the list that, ESPN and Jeremy Fowler released, there is no quarterback except Patrick Mahomes that has more playoff wins than Jared Goff. Jared Goff has 5 playoff wins. No other quarterback on that list has more than that, except Patrick Mahomes. And then, outside of the top 3 quarterbacks on my list, which is Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Brock Purdy in that order, 1, 2, 3, no one on the list between either their list or my list has a better winning percentage in the playoffs. So think about it. You have the quality, you have the quantity, and on top of that, you have also the accomplishment factors. You have everything that Jared Goff has going for him in Detroit as far as situation and as far as the future is concerned. Pretty much my whole point is this. Jared Goff absolutely deserves to be ranked where I put him. Not because I'm a Goff fan, not because I'm a Lions fan. It just makes the most logical sound positioning. Now, I know there are people that are going to say, oh, but David, what about, Justin Herbert? What about Stafford? What about this? Okay, let's think about this, folks. Herbert, brand new head coach, which granted, it is Harbaugh, but doesn't have nearly the same amount of weapons that he had last year because let's think about this. Mike Williams gone, Keenan Allen gone. He's dealing with a rookie wide receiver. Offensive line, while it got some improvement, is still pretty shaky. Okay, let's move on off to the fact that also with him being with the Chargers, he is in a crowded division. So it's going to be very hard for him in that capacity. Then you talk about Stafford. Okay, Stafford has a great receiving core. He has a great coach. But the problem with Stafford is that, what is he, 35, 36? His career is in the twilight stages. He's got maybe 3, maybe 4 more years left, and he's done. So there's no way I'm going to put him higher than where I put him because it's like his future prospects are almost out. Then you talk about guys like Lamar Jackson. Is Lamar Jackson talented? Yes, he is. I call him a talented player. He can throw the football. But it's like, let's understand something here. How many first-round freaking wide receivers have the Ravens drafted for Lamar Jackson, and yet Lamar Jackson has not taken that next step as a quarterback? What is Lamar Jackson's playoff record? That's my whole point. Lamar Jackson, while he might be a talented player, he doesn't have the qualitative measurements as a quarterback in terms of passing statistics or in terms of playoff wins. That's what I'm looking at in terms of that. And then you can talk about other guys like Dak and Tua, but it's like, dude, the argument for them not being higher makes it plainly for themselves. Neither of those guys have really done anything, either in the playoffs or anything else. The only reason they're on there is because, well, all the other guys I might consider are either one-year guys or, hey, you know what? Like Rodgers, they haven't done anything for a while, so I'm not going to put them on there. That's my whole point. The list itself is, like I said, with the title, it's a blindside for the Lions in a good way because it's like, hey, the Lions actually got some recognition with Jared Goff being on the list. But it's also a blindside in a negative way because it's like, dude, once again, the Lions are not given the credit necessarily that they are entitled to because of what Jared Goff has done. When you start actually taking a look at what Jared Goff has done with the Detroit Lions and over the course of his career, he deserves to be much higher than number 9. Hence the reason why I put him where I put him. Because it's like, dude, the only guys that are in front of him that should be in front of him in terms of what they have accomplished, even if it's only been over a few years or over the course of a much longer period of time, they deserve to be there. That's why I said the list is it's sketchy. It's like, listen, I get it. It's opinionated because of executives and all this other stuff, but it's like, dude, there's a lot of people that are still sleeping on Jared Goff. There's a lot of people that still think that, you know what, Jared Goff, while he might be a top 10 quarterback, he's not a top quarterback. And it's like, dude, you take a look at what Goff has done. He has earned that top 5 billing that I gave him. He's earned the contract that he got. There's a reason why he's where he's at. Just saying the facts for what they are, folks. But Anyway, I'm going to end the episode, and I just want to say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and now had a chance to do so, highly encourage you all to subscribe. But I also encourage you all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page, so that way you guys never miss any more content I push out. I also encourage you all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we share it, the greater the channel grows and spreads. And with that being said to everybody, I hope you all enjoyed the content. I hope you all are enjoying your day. Hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.